I need to answer that. Thank you, Bobs, for that special. Thank you, Bob. I can't make a decision, but I decided.
I decided to make a decision to not decide.
I've decided to not decide. That's a decision. I'll give it to
you.
you.
It is. That's a lot of people fall into that. That's actually something that's very important. Like people think like, oh, if I just like put off until the deadline happens, that's making a decision.
Yeah.
Like, you know, it's like, oh, if I'm just going to procrastinate until I don't have to make the decision, that's a decision in itself.
Yeah, that's my decision. It's like,
yeah,
well, we're going to get into that.
Yeah.
It's like, it's no with a different package.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that's like just a delayed no, a lazy no. Well, I heard this thing. It's like delayed obedience is disobedience.
Yeah,
and that's still the same premise, your same concept. Like your heart's willingness to follow through or to obey or to whatever it is like basically saying no. Procrastination is you lying to yourself and saying no, but not really no. Like it's like a justified no. Yeah.
Or just like waiting it out until you can't make a decision and then pretending like it's not your fault.
Oh, right. The justified no.
Yeah.
It's like, I'm saying no, but it's not my fault. That is my fault.
Exactly. It's like kind of like you think of it like, oh, you have like some cucumbers in the fridge or whatever. Specifically, cucumbers not really necessary, but whatever. You got some cucumbers in the yeah, exactly. And you're like, oh, they go bad by this day. I'm gonna eat them, and then they go bad.
Yeah.
It's like you knew that they were going bad.
Yeah.
But you just refused to eat them until you couldn't anymore. It's like you don't really want to eat them, but you say that you are, and then you just let them go out of date so that you don't have to.
How many times do we see that, like, within, like, people or, like, even friends?
Yeah.
It's like, hey, you want to go do this thing? Yeah, we'll see. Or, like, yeah. That sounds great. Yeah, hey, I'll get back to you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I used to do that all the time, but, I hate that. I really do. But back in the day, I used to do it all the time.
Right,
but now,
we'll see is no.
Yeah, we'll
just
see.
Say no,
just
guy.
say no. That's it. Like, I respect you much more for a no than a half yes that you really don't want to do it anyways, and you're just gonna wait till the day up to say no.
Exactly. Yeah, we go back into social interaction. How the idea that people just don't want to disappoint other people, and that's something to think about in a much broader sense, where it's like decisions also affect other people. That's a subtopic of this that we'd like to be interesting to get into, is that your decisions affect other people, but also not deciding affects other people too, where it's all like, oh, I'm going to just put off doing this thing until I decide that, until you just stop thinking about it. That's another thing that like a lot of people do, and a lot of people.
What?
You are playing with the GoPro. I'm talking about the idea that
no,
where it's it's not my fault.
Honestly, I don't know what's up with this GoPro thing. Like, it just randomly just decides to shut off.
It's probably the card. The card is probably like, is it a silver level or a gold level card? Because sometimes the GoPros need the gold level cards.
Must be then.
The write speed might not be high enough for the GoPro.
I ran it for like over an hour last night and it was fine.
Oh, okay then. Then I don't know.
Yeah, it's just like it doesn't like to work this early.
Yeah, that's probably what it is.
Anyways, what were you saying?
I don't even remember anymore. I really don't. I don't know what I was saying.
No. We'll listen back to the podcast later.
Yeah.
Oh man, well, welcome to the Life Podcast. My name is Eric and I'm here with Tyler. What up? Benji.
What's up? Hold on. Before we continue moving forward, my parents do this to me all the time. This is a perfect example of this situation. My parents, this show releases a week later, and then I talk to my parents on Sundays because they're in Europe right now. And as I'll like, they say like, oh, you guys said this thing on this show, and I'm like, no idea what you're talking about.
What?
And it's like, this is the perfect example of it. It's like stream of conversation, perfectly like coherent or somewhat coherent statements, and then 20 seconds later I have absolutely no idea what just happened.
Honestly, this show turns into like a healthy brain dump sometimes. It's like, let me just dump out everything that's inside of my head right now.
Absolutely. It's almost therapeutic, and our psychologist would definitely be.
Yeah, the psychologist who's listening for Tyler's psychological profile.
NSA Brian,
Yeah,
shout out.
Yeah, and NSA Brian.
NSA Brian is loving it.
No, but it's funny, and it's a real testament to really how unscripted a lot of this wisdom is.
Oh yeah, a lot of this stuff is literally, we don't even write any of this down. We literally make a decision 12 seconds before going on there. We're like, all right, decisions. We've decided to make a decision, and we just like ran it. And it's not like that we're not prepared for it. These are things that we've been that sits inside of us, and we're able to talk about just our perspectives of it. But I think that's what I love most about this podcast.
Well, that's the realest part. It's out of the abundance of the heart the mouth speaks.
Yeah, it's really authentic,
and it draws on whatever you actually have. Like, I mean, if you were full of trash, it's like somebody could listen and be like, dude, like, what are you saying right now?
Yeah.
Like, you have no idea what you're saying. There are plenty of people, public figures. You can start processing your brain. I'm not going to mention any names, but you'll be like, this person has no idea what they're talking about right now. Why are they on national television?
Yeah, right.
There are a lot of stuff like, and also we only talk about stuff that we know about. You know, like we're not going to go talk about like Ugandan politics because we don't know anything about Ugandan politics. You know, and it's
I read a Wikipedia article. Like,
yeah, exactly. It's like this article from 2001 says
It's got to be accurate.
yeah, you know. So it's like there's something to be said about people who talk about things that they don't know, but. You know, we try not to do that as much as possible.
Honestly, I worked with a guy for forever, and he was that one-up guy. And there's far and few like personalities that actually like will get under my skin. But it's like the point of I have to have a better story than you to the point where I have to even make it up.
Yeah,
because it doesn't exist. Because and you catch on to it like later down the road. It's like, so you're telling me you've had 1,000 like different jobs and like, how old are you? And, like, what did you actually do? It gets out of hand, but I mean, it comes from a deep-seated psychological, probably.
Yeah, absolutely.
Back to my psychological profile, guys. Anyways, so I guess the show we're going to be talking about decision, right? And this was Eric's baby, so you can push this one out.
Yeah, I don't know. It's become like really evident to me, like the amount of lack of decisions that gets made throughout like people's lives, due to, like we were saying earlier, just afraid to say no, or just the procrastination of saying no, like the we'll see thing, and that lack of decision, like it's just so important to remember that your future relies on every decision you make at this moment, and if in every like the place that you are in right now is a result of every decision that you have ever made. And so whether it's good or bad, if you're depressed, it's a result of your decisions. If you're happy, result of your decisions. If you're successful, result of your decisions. If you're broke, result of your decisions. It's all very connected of every decision that you have made that have led you to this point. So it's super important to understand that every decision that you can make today will change your future.
All right, so before we get too far away from that, you're talking about like, oh, well, if I'm depressed today, it's a result of my decisions. If I'm whatever today, it's the result of my decisions. Somebody could be like, well, I'm depressed today because so-and-so did something to me. It's like, it's not my fault I'm depressed today. It's not my fault my life's a mess. When it's like, sometimes we can't help the cards that were dealt, but then it's our job at how we deal with it when it comes back.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
and that's the biggest thing. It's like, okay, well, the cards were dealt. Do I throw them back into the deck or not? It's like, okay, well, this person rejected me. This person did these things. How did I handle that from there? It was a choice of decision. Am I going to receive this or am I going to reject this?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, absolutely.
I saw a quote from Jim Carrey yesterday, and regardless of however you feel about Jim Carrey, he was saying depression is real, but if you don't eat well, if you don't sleep well, if you don't go outside, if you don't have social interaction, you're not going to give yourself a fighting chance.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that that's so true, where it's all like, yes, there are people who are predisposed to have different chemical balances, which are characterized as depression. That's what we call depression. But I think that in most cases, there are extreme cases where it's not true, but in most cases, we can combat most of those feelings by doing things, changing the way that we adapt our lives.
That's exactly true. I don't want to say I'm predisposed to depression or anything, but I've had large bouts and like battles with depression before before I became the person that you guys know now.
Yeah.
But there's a place to be able to recognize and know, and there's like I was saying, that place of decision. There's a place of decision whether you're going to meditate on those thoughts that bring you to that depressed place or not, or how am I going to react to the thing that stimulus that's making me feel depressed now?
Yeah.
And then, like you're saying too, I mean, self-care will have a lot to do with it. We psychological profile right now. We talk about being hangry. Like, one thing I don't need to go with, I mean, a lot of people get really grumpy or depressed when they don't sleep. I feel like I do a pretty decent job of managing myself. Like,
luckily, all three of us do okay with that.
On minimal sleep. But when it comes to eating food, if I don't eat, I get so stinking hangry, guys. And that will trigger a lot of other things by just like emotional response.
Yeah.
And you can see that. It's like, okay, well, self-care is really important too, or else you won't be able to function correctly in your body to make the right decisions.
Yeah, absolutely. And a lot of people just neglect these things, and or they just choose not to make decisions on it. And these things are affecting you. They're affecting the people around you, especially with the hangry thing. If you get hangry, you need to maintain. You have to make the decision to maintain your appetite in order for you to be like just like
a functioning human.
Right. And it's like I say that I have the same problem. Whereas like if I don't eat, there are emotional triggers that end up. It's like almost like a childish, emotional way of reacting to things that usually don't bother me. But because I'm hungry, it's like this is a problem now.
Well, we have a friend, and I talked to him a while ago, and it's like you have all these mood swings. It's like, well, how are you eating? Like, what are you putting into your body? And it's like, oh yeah, well, I don't eat appropriately, or I'm drinking too much caffeine all the time, or and it becomes a cycle of things.
Yeah.
The human body is a very complicated machine. And as we go through life, we make decisions about it that can affect it in a lot of different ways. And this really boils down to we have to understand that our decisions have effects on ourselves and the people around us. And we have to accept the things that those decisions affect. I can't go make a decision and say I'm going to eat Burger King for 6 months straight and then realize that I have high cholesterol and all these horrible things and I'm 350 pounds and all of these. Like you can't make both of those decisions. Like you can't cry about that and make those decisions for 6 months. That
reminds me of the Pikachu meme. Like,
oh yeah.
You can't eat Burger King for thing.
That's what that meme. That's what that meme was like. Oh, the decisions that I've made have gotten me into this situation that I don't like. What? Like, yes, exactly. And people do this all the time, where it's all like. There's so many different situations, but there are things in the world that we understand. If you drive your car, you're going to run out of gas. People understand that concept. Same thing with the human body. Same thing with the decisions that we make socially. You can't make decisions socially and expect nothing to happen by those decisions.
And it's just a basic concept saying that your decisions have consequences. But it's like, it's something that's so easily overlooked. And then when things go bad, they're like, why me? Why does these things always happen to me? It's like, this is a direct, like, you just spent the entire night out.
Yeah, right.
Now you have to be up for 6 a.m. for work. Like, this is the decision that you made.
Yeah.
Whether it's a good or bad decision is not up to me to decide. That's up to you. But if you think it's a good decision, then do it. Don't complain about it. But if you're complaining about it, maybe it's a bad decision.
Well, I guess that comes down to the thing that we're still kind of like brewing to talk about, and it talks about that book that Navy SEAL guy Jocko Willink wrote about extreme ownership, about like once you understand and you take ownership over everything that's in your direct reach, and saying, listen, this is my life, this is my atmosphere, these are my decisions, whether it be in combat or whether it be like in my family life. Once I can own whatever is happening, it's nobody's fault but mine, because it's a direct correlation of the decisions that I'm taking and the actions that I'm making. Then we can really we can mount onto that thing. But we'll definitely have a whole show about that.
Absolutely. The concept of like that we've said on the show so many times, that everybody pulls for them, which is not grammatically correct, but nonetheless, like we pull for us, we pull to our side. Like that's something that we all have to understand. And it's like everybody else is pulling in their direction. We can't just make the decisions that we want and expect everybody else to accommodate us based off of the decisions that we make.
Why does nobody trust me? Well, how many times did you go out and break people's trust?
Yeah.
Over and over again. It's like, well, why won't anybody trust me with anything? Because you're not trustworthy.
Yeah. And that instant gratification plays a huge role too. Like, what makes me feel best right now? Yes. Not deciding. That's what makes me feel best. That's what, not saying no, not saying yes, and I'm just gonna. There's even a maybe option when you get a Facebook event, like maybe, like yes or no.
That's polite no.
Yeah, if you get a maybe, just it's a polite no. Like it's on paper though, or on digital form, but whatever, so they can see that. But it's like there's just too much gray area. Just make your life black and white, and things will just start getting to point A to point B faster. People always complain about how long it takes to get to success. Make decisions and see how much faster success can come. It's the whole maybe thing, maybe, that things take longer to get to you. But if you say yes and no, you're clear cutting all these opportunities out of the way. And we'll be back. Stay tuned.
We would like to thank Anchor for sponsoring and hosting the Life podcast. So who are Anchor and what do they do? Anchor is the all-in-one platform that gives you everything you need to make and publish your podcast. And best of all, it's all free. Anchor allows you to use their creative tools to record and edit your podcast. No need for any fancy professional equipment. Sounds amazing, right? And we haven't even gotten to the best part. Anchor isn't just a recording and editing platform. They're a publisher too. This means that Anchor takes care of all of the hard stuff, like publishing to Apple and Google Podcasts, so you don't have to. So what are you waiting for? Download the Anchor app today or go to anchor.fm to get started. Another thanks to Anchor for hosting, publishing, and sponsoring the Life podcast.
Because that's what we're going to do. We're just going to rock.
Just rock and roll.
I want to rock.
Dun, dun. Yes, absolutely wonderful. Welcome back, everyone. For you, it's been a 30-second ad. For us, it's been whatever amount of time it was. Yeah, 4 minutes, 5 minutes. Look at the wonder.
You know what's so miserable about that? Like I was just singing, like I want to rock. Most people like kids our age. I call us kids, but like people who grew up in our time frame, like probably think of that from SpongeBob of all things.
Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah.
It's not like that wasn't actually a song on the radio. Like
all those songs they pulled from somebody. Like you think SpongeBob, like as much like great writing efforts go into SpongeBob. I'm a big fan of the show, but like, do you really think that they could write like amazing hits like that too?
Well,
like,
I mean
it's reframed off of.
I think Nickelodeon could definitely pay writers to make songs that are pretty good, but I don't think that they did for that specific episode.
No, yeah. I mean, I don't.
Wasn't that from a movie?
No, that was from.
No, that one in particular.
Oh, that one was from the movie.
That was from the SpongeBob.
Oh,
movie,
I was confusing it with the one that was like the dome.
The
one that they played at the Super Bowl.
Sweet Victory. Oh, I love that one. Anyways,
actually,
we're adults.
Yeah. Well, growing up, there was an episode where they were doing extreme stuff. It was like something hibernation with Sandy, and Pantera actually played all of the soundtrack for it. It's like, like one of the most like outrageous satanic metal bands like of all time ever. My favorite band growing up ever. And it was like they played the entire soundtrack.
That's great.
Nice.
Actually.
Yeah,
I didn't know that.
Oh, dude, it was great. Yeah. Anyways, so
that's
talking about that. Oh, unpopular opinion right now while we're on the topic. SpongeBob is an amazing show, but the movies suck.
They have multiple movies.
There's multiple movies.
They do.
I didn't even see the other ones, but just from watching them and seeing like the plugs and everything, it's like they suck.
I don't know if that's an unpopular opinion.
Comment below.
Yeah. Well, we'll find out, won't we? I don't think anyone in this room disagrees. But
people will be like, I haven't watched SpongeBob movies in like 8 years.
Guy, I don't even know what SpongeBob is.
Yeah, exactly.
I think I make like this like fantasy place of SpongeBob references like in my brain because like they get funnier as you bring them into like real life situations than they actually were in the show. Yeah. It's like this joke is so good outside, like when you can use it, but when you watch it in context, the show is like,
I tell you, one of my favorite SpongeBob jokes.
Low hanging fruit.
Yeah, one of my favorite SpongeBob jokes is the one when they're about to beat up the old man. They're like,
how many times did I teach you this lesson, old man?
I love the young people.
Remember that meme when Toys R Us was going out of business?
Yeah, exactly. It's because like the internet takes such out of context stuff and like pulls it so far out of context that it doesn't even make any sense. It's there's now these meta memes where it's all like they took out all of the captions and they just like tiled them all together to make like this story, and if like you knew the meme, like it meant something, and everybody was all like, we've diverted back to hieroglyphics. Like it's free real estate.
Anyways,
that's what it is.
well, going back to decision making, we're talking about the importance of decision making on so many different levels, not only for yourself but for other people around you. But let's talk about the other people around you. How does it affect them? How does your lack of decision making affect them?
Hold on, I gotta make a decision right here. I guess the GoPro's saying it's getting hot. Saying it's too hot.
It's sitting on a heater.
Yeah, fair enough.
Yeah, but the heater's not plugged in, guys.
I know, but it's
Again, not okay. What do you mean? What decision do you need to make, Tyler?
I need to make a power move right now.
Okay. Again, not relevant to the podcast, but that's fine.
Go ahead.
Okay, Eric, go ahead.
Oh, yeah. So, like the decisions that you make and other people around you, it could be simple as like, oh, are you coming over to this party? And you're just maybe. That's one thing. You like this minor inconvenience in other people's lives. I'm not a big fan of it. I know you think it's like, oh, it's no big deal. It's only a party. If I don't show up, who cares? But it's a minor inconvenience for this person because you don't know. Like, obviously, like when we were younger, like definitely don't care. But like now, it's like people like they're planning out. They probably have to pay for you to be there. They have to probably like provide some sort of food. And your maybe answer, maybe I'll be there, maybe I won't be there, is an inconvenience, and it makes other people's lives difficult. But that's very basic level, very entry level. Decision making. If you can't get those things down, it's going to be very hard to make the bigger decisions in your life. Like, I don't know, selling a house.
Mm-hmm.
You don't want to lose the house. I understand kind of thing. You don't want to lose the house. But if the house has value today, you must sell the house, right?
Yeah.
If you want to sell the house, it's like one of those things like where I know people that have been waiting to sell a house because they're afraid to lose it. And they have this like this really hard pride thing that they're trying to get over, and because of that, like the value of it could drop. You just don't know. Like every opportunity for a decision, there's a window of opportunity for a decision that you make. If you decide not to make this a decision within this window of opportunity, the opportunity is gone.
Mm-hmm. As we talk about the idea of the phone call. The phone call is the same concept. You don't know if the phone call is important or not until you answer the phone. This is, of course, before this analogy comes before the time of caller ID and whatever. It's all like you don't know if the phone call is important or not, but you have a limited amount of time to answer the phone before that phone call is gone. That phone call will never be retrievable again. The person can call again, or they might not call at you ever again. But you will never know the importance of the call unless you pick it up. And that's okay. You don't have to pick up the phone call. But it is something that you can do. I think that actually, now saying that analogy, that is like a concept of society as a whole. We've switched from the concept of making decisions in the moment, where phone calls were rampant and it's all like, oh, you have to make this decision right now if you want to hear this information or not, to text messages where we can go 4, 5, 6 hours without responding and everybody thinks that's perfectly fine. You know, and I think that like I'm not one to be like, oh, society is like, you know, but like reading into the deeper things of society, I think that is a societal shift that's happened that a lot of people refuse to acknowledge or don't think of acknowledging at all.
I honestly completely agree with it. When you think about it, I mean, there was like there's a comedian that I can't remember his name, but he goes viral every now and then. But he has one skit where he's talking about like what it used to be like answering the door back then versus what it's like answering the door now. And it would be like, you know, like back in like the 90s and the 80s, like the doorbell would ring, everybody would get excited, and they go, someone's here, someone's at the door. You know, the whole family comes downstairs, they all slide to the front door, they open the door. Look who's here! I don't want to take a skip. Yeah. So I once I think of his name, I'll say it out. But anyway, so everyone's excited to see him. Well, whoever's visiting. And then like today, you know, the doorbell rings, everyone hides.
Has like a panic attack. It's like, who's here?
Hiding under the bed. They turn off the lights.
Absolutely.
But like that's a serious shift in society. Like if you don't call now when you're here, like you're not here.
Yeah.
If you're not calling from the driveway, you might get
the two different answers. You have who is it, and then you have the new Bedford. Who now?
Yeah. Like, I got 6 guns. Like.
Or even this is like a generational shift too, where it's all like I think of like the older Portuguese people in my like who I'm related to, that you could show up to their house right now and everything would be perfectly fine. Like they'd be like, "Oh, come in, come have a coffee." Like it's like, "What? Like how are you just actively prepared for this situation to happen right now?"
They just have they have cake on
standby.
So in 2013 I went to the Azores with a few people that we know, and my job, like my entire mission in that trip was when we were invited into people's houses, you sat down I had to sit down next to the guest because every single person would feed you, and they would get offended or upset if everybody didn't eat. So it was like, Tyler, you just need to sit here, shut up, and eat as much as you possibly can. We don't care if you get sick, but we need to talk to these people. Like, just keep eating. I'm sitting there stuffing my face with figs and bread and grapes and just whatever they bring out. And like
how do you have this much food? You don't even know we were coming.
Why? You're so skinny. Not after the strip.
So that comedian's name, just to get it out there, because I feel guilty. Sebastian Maniscalco, something like that.
Oh wow.
So yeah, I wasn't gonna remember that.
Yeah, exactly.
So I just wanted
was that Dry Bar? I feel like I've seen that.
I don't think it was Dry Bar.
Oh,
rip.
But it's not that bad. But anyways, but yeah, so that concept of the telephone of like when it rings now, you have the caller ID, you have text messaging. In all these things that allows you to answer later. It allows you to make the decision later. Mm-hmm. It really does. Like you can even put it like there's people that especially with iPhone. I don't know much about Android, but you can have like your text messages read or unread. You know
read receipts. Yeah,
read receipts.
You're the only person I know who still has read receipts on.
Because I make decisions.
Yeah, I guess so. It's like
I don't like giving myself the option to not answer because I let things go to the waste, not on purpose, but like I have people that I do have to answer, especially like clients and all that stuff. And if having that, knowing that it's a read receipt, so when I open it, I answer it on the spot instead of like, I answered in a couple minutes, and then like life happens.
Yes.
And you don't get back to it, and then all of a sudden the person on the other side is like, they never answered me.
You're leaving me on red.
Yeah, well, exactly, and that stops me from like doing that, like knowing that they saw that I read that at a specific time. I feel obligated to answer within a certain amount of time.
I like how that. I like how that concept of being left unread kind of like evolved over time, where it was all like, oh, we're like companies as a whole were like, oh yeah, we're gonna allow this feature to be like just by default. Everybody knows when you read the thing, and then over like the span of like 2 or 3 months, everybody added the option to shut that off. like so many people were getting in trouble that they were like, you know what, let's just shut it down.
Yeah. And that's funny, but it's very accurate, and I think it's a pretty accurate depiction of society.
All right, so society is a construct. If we get all philosophical about it, think about it. We've made this microwave culture where we have instant gratification at our fingertips. We have so much more communication now than ever. I mean, we have the ability to get things done in a flash, a blink of an eye. Mm-hmm. But at the same time, like as exponentially, like. And parallelly, I made that up, I guess. In parallel, yes, okay. Anyways, so as these two functions are going, you have this increase in productivity, but we're also breeding this procrastination culture where it's like, okay, well, instead of getting your instant phone call, like your phone calls, and you have to answer it in that instant, like I can get to communication whenever I want now. Mm-hmm. Oh, the text message, I can get back to that 3 weeks later. You ever have friends that you text and they text you back like 3 weeks later on like a Wednesday at 3 o'clock in the morning?
Yeah.
Yes.
That's
like, dude, I don't even remember what I asked you.
Yeah, that's my big thing. I don't like late responses to text messages. Like
don't even answer.
Like
at all.
It really
weeks later. Actually, I got one of those on my birthday yesterday.
Oh, rip.
It's like it was like yes. I'm like, what are you talking about? I was like, oh, the lawnmower. You asked if you wanted to I borrow your lawnmower. I was like, dude, that was 2 weeks ago.
I cut the grass 4 times already.
but I feel like that's something really like where like that sine wave where like as we push to this productivity, there's a pushback of procrastination. It's like I can get so many things done, but I can procrastinate on so much more now.
Mm-hmm. I mean that's key. You prioritize. Having this delayed ability to response definitely increases our ability to prioritize other things versus because a lot of the stuff that comes through your phone, like if you were to answer every email you got throughout the day, you'd probably you really lose focus. Mm-hmm. So there are some positives to it, but I think there's 2 different ways that people take this. Either you take it as the route of the super productive person or you take the route of the super procrastinative person.
Why can't I why shouldn't I waste my time like replying to no reply at bobsdiscountfurniture.com? Like I need to answer that. Thank you, Bob's, for that special. Thank you, Bob.
I'm gonna start responding. Thank you, Bob.
Just for a day.
Yeah. No, but like, I actually don't think that there are a lot of productive people.
No,
I think that there's a small
crazy
group
shift.
of really high productive people.
Yeah.
And then the rest of society just does absolutely nothing.
You have Jeff Bezos and then the rest of the world.
Yeah, exactly. It's like
Yeah.
Jeff Bezos, well, he's really good at understanding that most people can only do one task for 8 hours a day. So it's all like you get like 5,000 people, you each give them one task, and then you have an assembly line. Like, there you go. Congratulations. Like, that's pretty much it. I don't think that people have a lot of productivity.
I got that productivity lesson from Benji last night as we were ordering my laptop.
Oh yeah.
Talking about core processors.
Oh, yep, yeah. We were talking about the difference between 4-core, 6-core.
Well, it was so much like I was asking him just about the differences now. Like, okay, well, you have like 1.4 hertz, like, but 4 cores or 6 cores, and then it's like, okay, well, you have 2.4. Like, obviously the power out. Anyways,
Yeah,
that's
okay.
a waste of time on the podcast.
Yeah, absolutely. But yes, I don't think that people are super productive. I think that they just decide not to respond to people, or they think that people aren't worth their time, or like maybe that just people just have such a short attention span that.
And that comes down to like their own like them as a person, like how you take that. It's like it kind of really defines who you are. You know what I mean? If somebody doesn't answer your text message and you get all bent out of shape for every text message that doesn't get a response, then you should probably not rely so heavily your life on this text message response. You should have other things going on.
Yeah. Do more productive things.
That's it. And here's the ducks.
And we'll be back. Stay tuned.
Early bird catches the worm.
No, it takes an entire village to raise an idiot or something. I think that's how that goes.
It takes a village. I think that's it. I think that's the whole, like, it takes a village to raise a child. Again, Tyler's psychological profile.
Oh man,
I was raised by bears, guys.
And also, 3 people does not constitute a village.
Let's go Bruins.
Depends on
Let's
where
go
you're from.
Bruins. Let's go
Yeah,
Bears. Yeah.
oh man. So talking about decision making, and we're talking about our perspectives of the importance of decision making and how it affects everything in your life, how it affects your friendships, your relationships, your business,
Your job.
Yeah, it just affects everything. Yeah, every decision that you delay or that you don't make or that you make, whatever it is, it has a direct effect. You know what I mean? When you wake up in the morning and you choose to have a good day, it's a very simple thing. And a lot of people don't do that. A lot of people blame the day on what happens, but you can decide in the morning how you're going to handle the day.
I had to talk with somebody about Monday the other day, and they were like, "Wow, I've never seen it like that before." They were like, "Oh, well, like Monday sucks. I hate Monday. It's a terrible day." No, yes, yeah, rip. No, but they did the same thing, just in a worse way. Like, they were really ripping Monday, and I was like, no, I don't accept that. That's a poverty mindset. Like, you are already setting yourself up for failure. What's the difference between Monday and Tuesday? What's the difference between yesterday and today? Because your work week started today was the new opportunity to go and make money and be successful. And they were like, wow, I never. Wow.
Oh, good. And that's important. Like, these small decisions that you make, every small decision can add up. We talk about the compound effect. Like, that's a perfect theory for this, where like all the little things add up to something bigger, but you have to start somewhere. So making decisions on the little things, I think, can really, really ramp up how you start to see things. Like, things are still going to happen in your life. Bad things are going to happen. Good things are going to happen. It's just part of life. It's how you handle it that really defines your day. That's what defines you, your character, and who you are, is how you handle the situations that get thrown at you.
Absolutely.
Go ahead.
I was thinking of an example. I have a friend who doesn't necessarily make the best financial decisions, and this person is always talking about how they don't have a lot of disposable income and all this stuff like that. And it's all like, if you look at like, and I don't really like to talk to this person about it, because like I look at this person and I'm like, okay, you buy all this random stuff, you do all of these random things, you work the minimum amount that you possibly can, and then you still complain about the things that you've done, like the financial decision. You always say like, oh, I don't have any money, like that, whatever. It's like there is like Eric was saying, you can't account for everything. You can't account for your car breaking down or getting into an accident or your boiler giving out. Like, you can't account for those things. You can.
Oh no, sorry.
But you can account for not going to McDonald's every single day and not going out to dinner every single day. You know, those are things you can account for.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, like how many times people go and they buy a house and they're like one boiler away from just being cooked and losing the entire house. And it's like, oh, well, but I ate out 5 days a week. Like that was really cool. It's like there's sometimes what do they call that? House poor? You got to be house poor.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And that relates to every place in your life in general, whether it comes to financial, spiritual, physical. You have to be house poor. It's like, okay, well, for the maintenance of the life that I'm trying to build, I have to make the appropriate decisions to be able to steward and harbor the environment that I want to be in. If we're just talking about friends too, the same friend I was talking about Monday, it's like, oh, I'm trying to do the right things. I'm trying to turn my life around. But yeah, I still keep putting the same impetus in with like, okay, well, why can't I stop smoking cigarettes? It's like, well, you're hanging out with people who are smoking cigarettes every single day and you're bumming them off of them. It's like, until you remove yourself from that atmosphere, or like, why am I still having problems with these certain types of drugs or whatever it is? It's like, well, you're going out and you're doing the same destructive patterns. Like, of course, you grab all the ingredients for pound cake, you're gonna get pound cake, and you can't expect brownies out of pound cake.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And that's like so important to remember, is like your decisions today, like the people around you can really influence like your decision. If you want to stop smoking cigarettes and you keep hanging out with people who smoke cigarettes, it's going to be even harder for you to stop smoking cigarettes. The decision, the likeliness of it, the decision that you're going to make is skewed. You know, whatever decision you said, when you're alone, you can say all sorts of things like, oh, I'm gonna quit, I'm gonna go to the gym,
right?
I'm gonna make all these decisions when I'm alone. But as soon as like some other third party influence gets involved, everything goes out the window.
We see that all the time. That's not a decision. You can say it with your mouth, but until you physically act on it, until you say, okay, my decision is I'm going to separate myself, or I'm going to do this thing, you can say it all you want, but the actions really make the twist or the thing. I mean, you hear that all the time, like, oh, I want to do good in life, but yeah, I'm still doing the same destructive things.
So, like, there's the saying of, like, there's 5 frogs on a log, 4 of them decide to jump in the water. How many's left on the log? 5, because none of deciding and action are 2 different things.
Okay.
You know, so it's like none of them actually did it. They just 4 of them decided.
Say that again.
5 frogs on a log. 4 of them decide to jump in the water. How many are left on the log?
Okay.
5 are left because none of them actually jumped in. 4 of them just decided that they were going to.
Yeah.
So it's like there's a difference between deciding and action. So yeah, you can make a lot of decisions on your off time and when you're alone, but until you actually start making moves towards it, there's nothing that's valuable there, and that's the hardest part. And I guess that kind of goes off a little bit, but it's still very intertwined, where it's like you have to decide and act, make the decision. Like when you say, like when people ask you questions like, oh, can you help me? And if you can, yes. If you can't, no. Try to remove some of that grayness out of your life. When you say maybe, and you don't realize it because it's such a small thing, but that grayness is still there. So your life, it kind of like sits over you in like this weird cloud of a decision that you have to make in the future. And this is something I used to fall guilty to all the time. I used to say it all the time. It's a problem for future me. And I'll tell you, future me bit me a couple of times. You know what I mean? I had to learn that the hard way, though. But I used to do it all the time, like especially when I was like, if I had to do something with my business and it's something I didn't want to deal with right now because it was just going to be a hassle. It's a problem for future me. I can handle that later, you know. And then later, the time would come. Future me has arrived, and he's just as mad as the old me, if not madder.
Absolutely. We talk about when parents teach children the consequences of their actions or whatever, and this concept follows us throughout the rest of our lives. You know, we have to remember that our decisions have long-lasting effects. That's really the whole point of this episode, is the decisions that you make in your life affect your life and the life around you. You cannot sit in the position that you're in right now, look at your life and say, I have not made any of the decisions that have gotten me to this point. It's like you cannot live your life as a bystander. If you're taking your life and you say, everybody around me made all of the decisions that caused me to be in the position that I'm in, you have like it's like a victimized mentality, which is not healthy. It's like, yes, there are certain things like the studio that we're in right now was not my decision because somebody decided to purchase this house that has the studio inside of it. You know, we cannot make decisions like that's out of my control. So the distance that I have to drive is out of my control. Yes, but I decide to drive here every day. That's what we have to look at it. We cannot say, oh, because Eric's studio's in this specific location, like that makes my life worse. It's like, then don't show up. Like, why are we taking other people's decisions and making them the cause of our suffering when we're actively interacting with those decisions?
We would talk all the time, and we would say, like, happiness is just a decision.
Oh, absolutely.
Most of the time, it's a decision. It's a constant stream of decisions. You make a decision to be happy or to respond correctly to something that's completely out of your control. It's like, all you need to do is look at the other side of the coin to be like, oh, okay, I can either be like, well, it is what it is. It's another opportunity, or like, oh, my life's over.
It's like there's this really simple concept that somebody said to me one time. And it's like, if you're allergic to cheese, you're not going to go to the grocery store every single week and buy $40 worth of cheese to put in your refrigerator to then throw away.
You have $40 worth of cheese.
I don't have $40. But like the idea that it's all like,
everybody have $40 worth of cheese?
yeah, Eric has $80 to make up for all of us. No, but like the concept is, why are you wasting your resources on things that you know you won't benefit from? And that's a dumb little example, but the friends in your life are the same thing. If you have friends who are just a drain on you, why do you continually interact with those people? If you have a job that is a drain on you, why do you continually interact with that job? And that's like, there's so many different things in our lives that we have the ability to cut off. Why do we continue to have them weigh us down?
Not going back to like psychological profiles, but I mean, I was with a friend yesterday, and he was talking about it, and I mean, I really didn't get into it. Be like, oh, this guy was my buddy, and this and that, and he did all these like scumbaggy things to me, and it's like, well, like, is he really like your friend? Like, if he did all those things to you, you're still friends with him? It's like, this guy always treats me like trash, and he always does this, and but he's your buddy for real?
Yeah.
Talking about cheese, did you ever eat that cheese I left in your fridge like months and months and months ago?
Tyler, I never am at my house, guy.
When hey, but that cheese was expensive, man.
Well, you shouldn't have left it at my house.
It was a decision that I made, okay?
Again, this is like,
I loved you. That was my gift.
This is a very funny little example. But the concept of like, okay, Tyler left the cheese at my house. It was expensive. That's unfortunate. It's not my problem. It's not my problem that I didn't eat it. It's like I didn't let Tyler's decision affect the way that I live my life. I'm not gonna go out of my way to eat the cheese that I personally didn't necessarily enjoy. But like Tyler likes the cheese. And a lot of people do this. Side note, not jokey like cheese things, but like if somebody likes it, parents do this a lot.
Cheesy?
Not my parents, thankfully. But like there are a lot of parents who are like, I like this thing, so I bought this really expensive thing for you. Here you go. Now it's yours. Tyler was talking about the couches that Tyler is like, has made a decision. He doesn't want things that he doesn't like in his house. So if I go buy Tyler a couch that's like horrible that Tyler doesn't like, and I'm like, here, Tyler,
or it could even be an awesome couch. You could buy me like a $3,000 couch, but it's like, I don't want that. That's not what I want.
It's a white elephant. It's like, it's useless to me, and it costs me resources to maintain.
Yeah, no, that's good. I'll tell you. It's like, oh, well, I was gonna get back into this whole gray area thing of like, not making the decision, not waiting, procrastinating. What comes with that? Like when you're procrastinating, you're delaying your own success. Can we say that?
Well, what was that quote that you had in the show notes that started all this?
It was decisions. So I kind of said at the beginning, it was every decision that you make, it will affect your future, and every decision that you've made has gotten you to where you are now. And I had another one in there, which I can't.
Your life today is directly correlated to every decision you've made up until this point.
And no, there was the other one, something about life will make it for you.
Oh yeah. So don't be afraid to make decisions in your life. If you don't make those decisions, then life will make it for you. And that's pretty much it right there. Boom. Like you can delay all these decisions all you want. There's a window of opportunity to make the decisions. You can delay all of them. You don't have to make a single decision in your life. That's when life dictates who you are. That's when life dictates how your day's gonna go. That's when life dictates everything. I always envision like this imaginary train coming at you. When there's a hard decision to make, it's like a train that's coming at you, and it's like, oh, I have to, I can't afford this, but I don't cancel it, kind of thing. You know what I mean? Or like I have this crazy high rent that's really hard to afford, but I don't look for another apartment. I hate my job, but I don't want to find another one. I don't want to do the work. I don't want to make the decision to actually leave. Stuff like that. It's like this imaginary train is coming at you, and you can make the decision, because you're gonna get hit with this train now or later. So it's either control the time of when the train hits, so that you have the resources to maintain it and to withstand and take the hit, or you wait for the train to hit you and you don't know when it's gonna come, and that can hit you on a time when you're low on resources. So when you're in a good position, get in front of these trains. Yes, it sucks to get hit with a train. I agree. It probably really hurts. But this figurative train is like that decision of, I want to quit my job and find a new one. I'm not doing well here. I'm underperforming and I don't like it. So I can just wait and ride it out until they fire me, or I can go get another job while I still have this one and not feel the shift.
And you ruin your reputation as you do that too. It's like, okay, well, I hate this job. I'm going to sit here and just like suck at my job for X amount of time so that people know that I actually like, and people think that I suck, and then I get fired.
Yeah. Or like, you could take this for everything. Like, I had a gym membership that was going on forever, and it's like, okay, I just kept letting it ride. I didn't realize there was a yearly fee of like whatever it was. So then they hit me with the yearly fee, and that was the kick in the butt for me to say, I need to cancel this.
Yeah.
Because it's just draining my resources every week of something that I'm not using. And it's like these small decisions, or even big decisions, like, I always picture it as like, either you get in front of the train now or you wait for it to hit you. Those are the two decisions. You're going to get hit with whatever issue it is. There are some situations where you can get out of the way. If you're really ahead of it, you can get out of the way, which is really ideal. But most people are so blind that they don't see the trains coming.
There's a cost associated with every move that we make.
Oh, yeah.
There's a cost associated with saying yes. There's a cost associated with saying no. If you're worried about the drain on something, it's going to drain either way. The resources are going to be used either way. It is much better to drain resources and get what you want than it is to drain resources and get what you don't want. The bill is going to be the same. At the end of the day, it's your life. That's the cost of everything that we're doing here. It's your life. You have X amount of time. We don't know how long. That's what the cost is. You might as well get what you want out of it if you're going to live the life anyway. There's no point in living your life, getting to the end and saying, wow, I had a really terrible time. You're not going to get any points for saying I had a horrible life. You might as well have the best life that you possibly can. And if that means removing things that you want to remove and adding things that you want to add, then you have to do those things, and no one is going to do those things for you.
Perfect.
There's the ducks.
Well, I hope this helped somebody. Start making decisions. Start with the small stuff. Decide to make your bed every morning. Decide to just be happy in the morning. Make these small decisions. Decide to, read something in the morning. Whatever it is that you've been wanting to do, start there. Something small.
Or decide to do none of those things and understand that that's the decision that you've made.
Exactly. And whatever result you get is a direct correlation of that decision.
Thanks for listening to the Life Podcast. If you like the show, please rate us on your favorite podcast platform. It really helps us out. If you feel like supporting us in a more direct way, you can check out our Patreon page linked in the description of this video. One last thing. Please let your friends know about the podcast. If you like the show, we're sure they'll like it too. If you'd like to reach out to us, send us an email at thelifepodcastshow@gmail.com. We appreciate all of your support, and we'll see you next time. Okay, now let's have a little bit more fun with that, Benji. I don't like to have fun, Eric.